You've heard the album.
This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And folks, here we are, June the 13th, 2023. And I have, well, we all heard of people in the Marvel universe having secret identities. Well, sometimes, you get people that have secret identities that aren't solving crimes. Well, not in that way. Folks, connected with me by Mike Gormley, I give you, how should I introduce you? Neville Johnson / Trevor McShane. How do you do?
That's me. Glad to be.
There you go. And I love the two name things, so it works for me, and I get why you do it, but nonetheless, Mike Gormley had he sends a lot of his clients to me, and he had messaged me and sent me your info. And how did you come connected with him? I'm sorry, we have froze. There, we had froze. Are you?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, we froze there. Yeah, how did you become affiliated with Mike Gormley?
Oh, golly. Well, I've been an entertainment attorney and a music attorney for 47 years. And I actually met him about, say, 4 or 5 years ago at one of my producer's studios that he had come over, and we chatted, and then I would see him at various places where people in the music business go, and so I'd just call him an acquaintance. I never did any business with him.
Okay.
And then we had lunch 6 months ago or so, and I discussed the fact that I was gearing up to really seriously go forward with promoting my music, and he said, well, I'd be interested in managing him. So there you go.
Well, I know you were an entertainment lawyer for a long time, attorney for a long time, and I guess still are. But what led you down that avenue, especially with entertainment?
Well, I've been known I was going to be a lawyer since I was about 12, thanks to various television shows that had lawyers on them. And I come from a highly educated family and went to, good schools, prep school, and I like to argue. So I figured out and then I was nuts about music since I was a kid, rock and roll, and when I was when I was about 18, I figured out I could probably combine the two, my interest in music with a law degree. And that's what happened. And I started off just doing music agreements when I got out of law school. But now I do everything in the entertainment business and predominantly litigation.
It's interesting because I was reading up on you this afternoon in prep for this, and I know you're a big fan of, for instance, John Lennon, and I know you've worked with Yoko Ono. Were you a Beatles fan growing up?
Yeah, absolutely nuts about it. In fact, I bought the Beatles box set that has everything in it, and I've never listened to it because I know every single lick and lyric of the Beatles. And I still love to hear it whenever I hear it, but of course, they are the best.
What's your favorite Beatles song?
Well, I think it's "I Will" off the White Album.
Okay. Do you like any other movies?
Sure. I remember when A Hard Day's Night came out, I sat through it twice.
I saw that at a special screening. I think it's a terrific movie, and I love Yellow Submarine as well. I mean, it's for funny animation. In fact, I have a little ornament that's the little yellow submarine. So yeah. Help wasn't bad, but I don't think Help was as strong as the other two, especially A Hard Day's Night. But I take it John Lennon was your favorite Beatle, huh?
Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And it was a thrill to work with Yoko.
Yeah. Yeah, I how pathetic how John left us, and that did need to happen. Of course, it made fans look bad because, now everybody's cautious about fandom, but we're not all crazy, but that guy was. But that guy should have been just happy that John was willing to sign an autograph for him, and then he had to take it a step further. But talk about working with Yoko.
Well, Yoko was basically smart and a nice person, and
Hmm.
um, I don't have any criticisms of her.
Yeah.
She tried to take care of business and do the right thing.
Isn't it interesting though that you got to combine your love for music with also being an attorney, and of course becoming a musician yourself? But you got to. It must have been fun to represent these people, and being able to make that combination.
Absolutely, I've got to work with a lot of my idols over the years. Mitch Ryder is, I think we consider each other arguably best friends. We're very tight with each other, and I've met and met and helped so many others over the years
Hmm.
that I just yeah I'm a lucky guy. I represented the estate of Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly is for me as big as the Beatles in terms of my interest as
Yep.
and
Oh yeah.
I represented the estate of Rick Nelson, who was one of my other heroes. Uh,
Hmm.
I became very close to Lloyd Price, who did one of the fathers of rock and roll, Lottie Miss Claudie and Staggered Lee and Personality. And I have a book company with my wife called Cool Titles, and we publish his autobiography, which was tremendously well received, called Some Dumb Honky. And
Hmm.
uh, and he had a fascinating life. And we published Mitch Ryder's autobiography, who has had a fascinating life as well. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm the person who can claim responsibility for getting the Everly Brothers reunited, although I ended up having some problems with them. And likewise, for a time, Holland Dozier Holland, the great songwriting team of Motown, I got them back together for a time at one point some years ago. So yeah, I mean, I've loved it. And then I've done work for actors and producers and directors, Stallone notably, and we bring class actions now against the record companies and movie studios saying you are underpaying,
Hmm.
and we're coming at you, and will help 10,000 or more royalty artists at a time, and that's very fulfilling.
Are you able to talk about your biggest case that you've ever done?
Well, I think the one I'm arguably most proud of is a case called Sanders versus American Express, which I did uh, in the 90s. And there, little old me sued the ABC television network for invasion of privacy on the use of hidden cameras on an investigative journalism show. And I beat them. And it was the first case in the history of the United States where an investigative journalism show or basically was ever found liable for more than $1. And in this case, it was a substantial amount of money and punitive damages for the first time. And it went all the way to the California Supreme Court, and I helped establish the boundaries of privacy in an investigative journalism context, and even beyond that. And I'm proud of the fact that I was not much more than a solo practitioner against giant, nasty lawyers on the other side. But their justice prevailed, and it put me on the map.
You know, one thing I find annoying, and I know this goes away from the music for a bit, but it does deal with the entertainment industry. Because I remember when Princess Diana left us, you know, and I don't know how the paparazzi got away with that, but and then they claimed that they weren't responsible and this and that. I feel a little differently about that, but what are your thoughts about that particular circumstance?
Oh, it's so offensive. I mean, leave the poor woman alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look what just happened to Prince Harry in Manhattan with being chased. I recommend reading his book, Spare. It's a sad commentary on the life that he's had to live, of having to be under such constant, intense scrutiny. It's bad enough that he's a public figure, but for people to be breaking the law to gather the news is just outrageous. And that was the key component of the case I just mentioned, is that
Mm-hmm.
establish the fact that you cannot break a law of general applicability to gather the news. So you can't lie, cheat, or steal to gather the news, or breach a contract. And what's wrong with that? I love journalism.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been an investigative journalist if I wasn't a lawyer. So I have no quarrel with investigative journalists overall. It's just, why should I believe you as a journalist if you lied to get the story?
Yep. No, I agree. So now you're in the music, and I love the fact, you know, that as an attorney, you're Neville Johnson, but as a performer, you're Trevor McShane. Now, and I love this. Almost to me, it's like a secret identity thing, you know, and I love that. You know, it's just like my name's Greg, but my DJ name is Python, you know, and it's always fun to do that and take that on. But what led to that with you? Actually, let me back up for a minute, because what led you to get into the performing side of music, and did it tie into anything about maybe representing some of your idols that you were helping, or was that something that was with you ever since you were young?
Well, there's two issues here. First is, let me just tell you, I did have a secret identity for the first 10 or more years of, of my being Trevor McShane. I had a totally made up resume, which maybe I should tell you.
Okay.
Well, why don't I do that now? Because it's fun. And then I'll tell you how I got into music.
Okay,
I was
please.
I was born on a mid-sized ranch in Montana. My father was the trail master. My mother was Native American, and I grew up learning cowboy and western songs and Native American songs when I was
Hmm.
homeschooled. I did well in high school and got a scholarship to an Ivy League university where people looked at me funny because of my coonskin hat. My senior thesis was on the effect of volcanoes on emerging economies, but there wasn't a lot of work in that, although I did some work in Krakatoa and Mount St. Helens. So I decided to see the world, and I became a merchant seaman for 2 years, where I learned a lot of sea shanties, ultimately jumping ship in St. Kitts, where I lived on a coffee plantation in a tent and played bass in a reggae band, most notably opening for Bunny Wailer. But because of the rainy season, I decided to get out of there and to find myself, and I became a monk in training in Lhasa, Tibet, where I lived for a year, but I was thrown out of the country for protesting the building of a new Holiday Inn. At that point, I went back to my first love, the sciences, and I was the first international exchange student at the University of Bulgaria, studying in the sciences. And to make money on the weekends, I played banjo in a klezmer band. That's where I met Mariana, the beautiful peasant girl, who I fell in love with, and whose parents said they didn't want their child to have anything to do with anybody in the entertainment business. So I went back to my first love, the sciences, and for the last 10 years, I've been a science professor at a small private Midwestern university and made a small contribution to the study of malaria and butterflies. on a butterfly hunting expedition in Tehachapi, California, sitting around the campfire playing guitar. I was invited to and dared to enter the Topanga Banjo and Fiddle Contest in Agoura, California, where I took first place in the category for intermediate guitar. And some of the people there heard some of my songs and took me into the studio. And but the wife still doesn't know, so it's on the down low.
I love that. And I love how it just I couldn't do what you did right there, you know. You just came right out, and I love that. Now, where did the name Trevor McShane come from?
Okay, so my forefathers, I'm three-fourths Irish, came from Ireland, and on one side of the family there, their name was McShane. And Shane is John and Mick is son. And there was prejudice against the Irish. So in the mid 1800s, when they got to Boston, they changed their name to Johnson and started the Johnson Construction Company. So it's an homage to my forefathers. And I wanted to be Ian McShane, but there's a famous actor by that name. So I remember Trevor Hawkins and other Trevors who were British actors, and I became Trevor.
There you go. So, going back to the music now, was that again an inspiration from working with your idols, or is that
No, it's all serendipity and it wasn't a plan at all. I had no intention ever of being a professional musician.
uh-huh,
And I didn't think I was very good, and I wasn't. And so I picked up guitar when I was about 20, 21, and
uh-huh.
I'm still not a great guitar player, but I can play the major chords and minors and sevenths. And I just wrote a few songs around the time I was in law school. Didn't particularly come easy. A couple of them turned out okay. In fact, one of them is called Baby Crazy, and that was the first video that I ever did, and it's pretty good if you take a look at it. David
Mhm.
Carradine does a cameo in it.
Okay.
And so he was my client once upon a time. So what happened was I just played in my room for 20 years, from 75 until 93. And then I was in the office of somebody I knew who has the improbable name Tequila Mockingbird. And she booked, I picked up a guitar and played it. And she said, "You want to play with Coffee House I book?" I said, "Okay." So I did it along with Francisco Aguabea, who's a legendary conga player, now passed. But I did it. And then Tequila said, "Neville, you need to do original material." And I said, "Really?" So I never thought I had a talent at it, but I started to write, and I found I have a tremendous, at least I think, aptitude for both writing lyrics and melody. And I started to write. And then another client said, "I'm going to take you in the studio," because I used to go to his house and play guitar. And he was connected with the Parliament Funkadelic, who were like the Black Beatles. And so Gary Scheider and Bernie Worrell, the keyboardist and guitarist of the P-Funk, and I went into a studio and I did my first recording, and I said, this is good stuff. I like this. It was fun. And then I decided to start a group, and then I started, and I had another client who had a studio. He gave me the time. So over a 5-6 year period, I made an album, and then I put it out, and that was about 2000. But I never promoted my music because I'm so busy in my profession overall, and I really didn't want it to conflict. And that was another, the real reason why I became Trevor McShane. I'm proud of my work as a lawyer, and I don't want to hurt it in any way. But now, look, I can't wait around any longer. I'm not getting any younger, and I have a 60, 70 unreleased masters at least, and a tremendous amount of product to put out. And I think it's pretty good.
Absolutely. Do you remember I was gonna say you remember the first song you ever wrote, but I would like to broaden that. What inspires you in terms of writing a song? Is there any, like, you got a lot of music out there. You got a lot of these mindless love songs that really aren't saying anything. I love it when people come out and they actually sing about something. And
Yeah, 90% of all songs. Well, I've figured it out. This is how you break down songs.
uh-huh.
There are four kinds of songs.
Mm-hmm.
I want the girl. I have the girl. I miss the girl. And car songs, which are about automobiles, peace in the world, Halifax, and anything else you can think of overall. So I write about all of those categories. Sometimes I'm writing from uh, my own heart, if you will, the love of my wife, for example. And sometimes I'm imagining what somebody else might be thinking or have to say about the other categories that I'm mentioning. But the human being, any person, these um, concerns, issues, thoughts cross everyone's life. And so if you're a novelist, you're going to write about, for example, you might write about divorce even though you've never been divorced. So I imagine uh, and I come up with ideas from out of thin air, out of things I might read in the newspaper,
Okay.
and observations in life. I have put out a book last 3 years in 2016 called "What Took You So Long." This is it.
Yeah.
Self promotion.
There you go.
Very well reviewed. It's 160 or so love poems to my wife that I've written over the years. I have in galleys right now a book called Spy Poems, which are 60 poems I've written about espionage that's going to be coming out. And so I'm constantly writing all the time whenever it might be a phrase here or there, or I'm just one thing will lead to another. I actually wrote an article, which I think you can find I wrote it on my website, on the Neville Johnson website, and I should put it up on my Trevor McShane website of how to write a love poems.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it stimulating and nurturing to be able to do that. And also, for me, I say some guys, they want to watch baseball games or play games or work on a car. I like to run and come up with ideas in that nature.
You know, I meant to bring that up too, that you write poetry. Number one, I love the fact because it's like my parents, they were married for over 50 years until my dad passed away, and you don't see a lot of marriages last a long time, but I love the fact that not only do you love your wife, but you write poetry for your wife. And I mentioned before about people writing empty love songs, but I love the fact that you actually are writing for towards your wife. So you got this collection of poetry. And of course, that adds to your music. What I find fascinating about that, though, is that poetry, of course, is something that goes way back. Were you doing that back when you were like in grade school and whatnot?
Well, I remember being in high school, we had to write a sonnet, and the teacher said, I'm going to read one now that's really good. And I went, what? And that was me. So, but I never wrote any real poetry then. And then in college, I wrote a little teeny bit, but not much. I didn't really start until Tequila said, you got to write stuff. And now I have 23 volumes of poetry, some of which are 400 pages that I have written over the years. I mean, I've got thousands of poems.
I bet your wife loves that book.
Well, she does, but also, I mean, it's healing to
Hmm.
write. It's a way of self-analysis. It's a way to uh, maybe get back at somebody. A way to
Ye-
capture a feeling or a memory.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I need to ask about, of course, this uh, your music that you got out right now. Talk about the process of, because I have no experience in this, about making a video or creating music and whatnot. You do. Talk about that first time that you have made an album and even made a video, because I mean that even takes a little bit further.
Well, as I said, in the 90s, late 90s, I made an album. The
Mm-hmm.
album was a concept album of sorts, in that the music was, in quotes, the soundtrack to a love story novel I have written. That novel is called First Love, Last Love. That book came out, but it didn't sell anything because I didn't promote it at all. And it is now coming out again. It's been through 10 new edits, and that's a whole separate project of mine that I'm doing. But the album stands on its own. I think I wrote almost most of the songs on it, but I put together a band, and I mean, it happened organically. I called a client of mine that was a studio musician playing classical violin, asked her if she wanted to do it. She said, absolutely not, but you should talk to these other people. So I ended up with a violin and a viola and a flutist. And then I was taking guitar lessons. I'd taken on how to play Buddy Holly, and my guitar teacher has written 400 books on how to play guitar, named Fred Sokolow. I played some songs after class. He goes, "You're good. You want to write with me?" So he's been in my band ever since, and we wrote some songs together. And then, so I had the concept of sort of almost a string quartet on that first album, but it's pretty got some rock and roll, and anyway, it's a great album. And so then I put out the album, and then I had to promote it. And somebody I knew, I paid to have a video done. And she did a very good job of it. And we put the video up, and it's still there. Baby Crazy is the song. But like I said, I can't tour. I couldn't tour because I'm stuck in the office. And I would do 2 or 3 concerts a year, every year.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and did well. You know, people came and encouraged me, and I put, I don't know, 3 or 4 other albums out over time. But they just, you got to promote these things. So more recently, I've hired this manager, and here I am now talking to you.
Yep, there you go.
And I've done 3 concerts in the last, I don't know, year. They all sold out. And I think I'm starting to get a reputation, and people are staying to the end. But it's the life of a musician is difficult and not particularly appealing if you're on the lowest rung overall. So I'm not of an age, don't have the interest, don't have the time, that I'm going to get in a van and cross the country and play. But I used to be the music critic at UC Berkeley back in the days of rock and roll in 70, 71. And I remember, you'd hear about a James Taylor or a Cat Stevens or a Joni Mitchell, and they were underground. And the next thing you know, geez, they're the top of the heap. One song can take you there all the way. I done contracts for people who came in, single song agreements, they call them. And the next thing I know, they're buying a house because the house went because the song went #1. And so if my music is any good, I feel that the cream of the crop will rise to the top.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite song that you've written? And if so, why?
Gee whiz. Yeah, I think it's 2 songs.
Okay,
One of them is called "It's a Very Big Word." That's on my first album, and the other one is called "The Old Flame," which I think is on my first album as well. Uh, I could recite the lyrics.
go for it.
The old flame goes like this. She used to protect me from myself. She could see them coming before I'd even tell the joke, and she would laugh as we'd stroll along the avenue. Once we were on fire, something new. Betsy and me had a rhythm that all could see, and everybody that we knew said they knew we would be together, that we would come through, but events overtook us. She pressured me. I was in school. The old flame still burns on. Some burn eternally. That old flame had a burning desire that always enveloped, engulfed, covered, and comforted me. Several years later, I was down at the store, Saturday morning, doing my chores. Surprise, surprise, was the tap from behind. I smelled smoke. Sure enough, it was fire. And Betsy mellowed out, and she still looked good, and I no longer cared about the money it would take for the two of us to maybe settle down. We took a walk through town. Heads did swivel. Tongues did wag. Everywhere we went, we heard the same tag. Can you believe what's headed our way? It's the two old flames. Those redheads are back. The old flame still burns on. Some burn eternally. That old flame had a burning desire that always enveloped, engulfed, covered, and comforted me. With the flame burned on and into the night. This is no exaggeration. It's still burning bright. Sometimes an old flame must test its strength in the wind. But when two old flames get together, you call them fire and gin. And she still protects me from myself. She can see them coming before I even tell the joke, and she just laughs as we stroll along the avenue. We're still on fire. Something new.
Oh, that was brilliant. That was brilliant. Oh, I love that. I was going to ask too, after you got done that first album, did you find making the second album easier or harder in
Oh,
terms of the process? Yeah.
I thought it was about the same. I mean, what actually happened was that after the first album came out, I also put out in the year 2000, I put out the novel, the album, and a nonfiction book that I had written, which was the biography of the greatest coach of the history of athletics in America, a man by the name of John Wooden, the basketball coach who's also a philosopher. And I started a book publishing company because I want to own the copyright. And that book did very, very, very well. But I said, I'm going to lose my law practice. I got no time to be in these other two areas. And so I had developed a friendship with a singer songwriter named Marilee Weaver and her now husband and boyfriend. And I was down because romance had not ended well. And I really didn't know what I was going to do musically anymore. And these people came to me and said, we have a studio. We think you're talented. We want to produce you an album. I said, really? Oh, that's great. And so that was the album Dizzy. And that's John Barnard and Marilee, and I'm still with them. John is my band leader. I write a lot of songs with him and with Marilee overall over the years. And so it was easy to work with them. And I just, came together over a couple of years, and we put together 10 or 12 songs and turned out great.
Do you remember the first time that you performed on stage? You know, what it was like that first time being in front of an audience?
Well, the first time was when I did the coffee house. Then I did another, then I then I played another coffee house. This is probably 94 or 5. And this lady comes up to me and says, hey, you're pretty good, and but I think you could use help singing. And I said, really? And I'd be willing. And it turns out she said, I'm a lawyer too. And I said, oh, really? Where'd you go to law school? She said, Harvard. She also played the viola. She was in my first band, Beth Bergman. And so that's that. I didn't have any problem playing at that coffee house at that time. And then when it came time after I did the first album, the band and I, we rehearsed, we went out and I played, and I swear to God, I never have had stage fright. I know I know what I'm doing. In the sense that I know my tunes pretty
There
much.
you go.
And my players are all sensational. The current band I have, every musician is a professional musician, except for me, the amateur. My trumpet player, I have a horn section now, and my trumpet player backed the Stones on tour. The
Oh,
guitar player,
wow.
Ed, who I told you has done 400 books on how to play music and videos, and anyway, on and on.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about what is happening now. I know Mike Gormley said that you have some stuff you want to promote, and of course, musically, you have some new music.
Okay, so there's another producer came to me, Paul Graham,
Mm-hmm.
and took us, I don't know. I was working on music with other producers as well during this period. It probably took 5 or more years with Paul over time. And so we made an album that is called Americana Romance. And I think Americana fits the title. I mean, fits the genre. And I wrote the songs with him and another guy, and we have top musicians performing on it, including uh, Paul Bushnell, who's a bass player, guitarist, and he does work with Faith Hill, and another guy, Greg Lights, who does the pedal steel. He does work with Bob Dylan and Jackson Brown. I mean, these are serious players. So, like I said, I have all these other albums backed up that I should have been putting out over time, but just didn't get around to it. And so now we're promoting this as a full-on project, and that's it. And
Well,
somebody is supposedly offering me some dates in Africa, but I'll see if that comes through. I gotta get, look, my stuff's gotta get on the radio, it's gotta get noticed, people have to start talking about me. I think I'm an interesting guy
yes, I do too.
because of my profession as an attorney. And
Mm-hmm.
then the question is the music, which will either you tap your foot or you don't.
You know what? It's interesting too because I totally get it because I do this for fun, but I work as a cleaner. I do housekeeping at the hospital, but I got 4 buildings for another company that I did today, and so I totally get you, and when you got one thing happening, you try to balance the two, and I love that that you've been successful being a lawyer, but I love the fact that you have this passion for music and that you're able to turn it into something more than rewarding. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in it for the money, that's for sure.
Mhm. But
But
I mean, even your poetry, I mean, that's another great side of you, the fact that I like the fact you wrote an entire book of poetry for your wife, I think that is amazing.
good, yeah,
Yep. I find that inspiring, I think more people should do that for their wives. Yep.
okay.
Yep. Is there anything else that you would like to plug and promote in here? You got any I know you said you don't get to perform quite so much, but do you got any place that you're gonna be where you're going to be performing? Or
In
anything to tell?
in August, we're doing a house concert in the backyard of my guitar player. It's really cool, and it's going to be very intimate. Uh, and that will be in August 19th.
Hmm.
And then the club I just played was called the Write Off Room, where I sold out, and I'm sure they're going to want me back. So we're talking about doing the date out there in November overall. I've got a music video of sorts on my new song, She Said, which you can find on YouTube or go to the website or Trevor McShane. I'm going to New York in August, and I'm going to do 10 videos reciting poetry that was produced or filmed by a cousin who's just got out of film school. I'm probably going to do 3 spy poems, 3 cowboy poems, because I also have about 30 cowboy poems, and 4 or so love poems overall. So that's what I got going on, and I'm going to be, I'm sure, shooting some more videos because YouTube is the way you promote these days overall. Also, my law firm represents the biggest production music company in the world, and they took some of my music and they've been featured in a few HBO shows. So I will continue to do that as well. But now that I have, actively attempting, I have a publicist. We're trying to get the word out about Trevor, and I'm just hoping somebody's going to pick up on it, and one thing will lead to another. And if there's enough interest, I'm sure we can squeeze in some dates here and there outside of Los Angeles.
Well, you know what? When I'm down doing my live show at the station, I'll be more than happy to play your music.
Good.
Yeah,
Well,
no
find
problem.
my music. Look, you can find my music on Spotify,
Mhm.
and most of it's on YouTube. And I think I've done a number of videos that I don't think I ever put them up on Spotify. I've got to take care of that now and do that. But there's probably 30 songs of mine up on YouTube.
Yep.
The videos are pretty good and some are pretty bad, but the music is okay.
Well, anytime Mike Gormley sends clients my way, I always play their music. So you'll get free publicity out of me.
Well,
Yep.
well,
No problem.
hopefully the public will enjoy it as well.
I can't see why not.
I would also say if you're a recording musician or an artist who's had some success, you should contact me because I might be able to help you. So that's some promotion for my law practice as well. And I'll mention that we have something called Super Lawyer here in Los Angeles, across the country. Each city has it, and all the lawyers vote on the top lawyers in town. And the top 5% are called super lawyers. Well, I've been one for many years, and for the last 3 years, I've been declared to be one of the top 100 lawyers in Southern California. And the Hollywood Reporter for 14 years or so said I was one of the top 100 lawyers. And 2 years ago, they put me in a permanent category called legal legend. So I'm proud of the fact that I've done good stuff as a lawyer and really helped people overall. And now why isn't it my time to shine? And what you were talking about before is something that I wholeheartedly agree with, which is, who said I could only do one thing in my life, my whole life? If I have the ability, the talent, the skill, the interest, and I go right and and create, and it's fun. And it's interesting, and who knows, it may be lucrative at the end of the day.
Oh, I think it's awesome. I encourage you to keep going with it. Absolutely. Well, is there anything else that you want to plug and promote before we close off? You got any charities that you're involved with that you want to plug on here too while I think of it?
Oh, I'm a fan of Children of the Night, which helps women who have been trafficked. I think that's a great organization. And as a lawyer, I'm involved in Public Justice, which is a collection of 25 lawyers full-time based in Washington, D.C. and Oakland, California, who bring cases that are helpful to provide justice in America against things like corporate greed and unfair labor practices and things like that. So I participate in that as well.
Absolutely.
Those would be my charities, I would think.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? It was wonderful having you on the show today, and I thank Mike Gormley for reaching out to me, and This was interesting, because I've never had somebody on here who went by two names, and I like that too, And I do agree. I think you should definitely keep going with the music and don't sell yourself short. I know you've got a great backup band and whatnot, and they're all professionals and they're all pros at what they do. Never sell yourself short. I know you said you refer to yourself as an amateur or whatnot, but don't ever sell yourself short, man. Go full
I'll leave
gusto.
you with one final lyric. Okay, this is the other song that I like,
Mm-hmm.
and first six lines were written by a friend. It's a very big word, affection, love. People get awful close to it. Does it ever come? It's a real easy Sunday, what I'm thinking of. One day is imminent, then my alter ego comes, but we're sitting here running effortlessly. Watch the setting, son. Easy going, rock and share. We love everyone. A little bit of nonsense, a whole lot of fun, taking lots of breaks, just a chat and kiss and hug, and it's a very big word when you're talking about love. This is the story of a genuine love. We two are together. Take it as it comes. Nothing can stop us or turn us away because together we got everything. And that's the way it lays. And don't you like the twilight and a cool breeze? And don't you like to be happy and healthy? That's the story of the glory of love. What love becomes when the love you feel is genuine. It's a very, very big love, bigger than the two of us, bigger than the world. We can both testify to a mighty strong love. It's a very big word when you're talking about love.
That was fantastic. I would never be able to memorize that, like you get a lot more skills than you may realize, You just came right up out of that, I'd have to be looking at a piece of paper so that's
Yeah, well, listen, I
amazing.
appreciate your interest in me and God bless you. And thanks for the great interview.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? Thank you, and uh this was amazing, but I love it that when you just come up with these lyrics just like it was nothing, like it was second nature, I think that's amazing, that's a great skill that I don't possess, so there you go. Before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Sure.
Yeah, just state your name or names and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
This is Neville Johnson, also known as Trevor McShane. And you've been listening to Greg Gilbert on Python.
Absolutely, folks. Yes, we are celebrating the career and the music of one Neville Johnson slash Trevor McShane. Check them out, folks. Plug your website on here again.
TrevorMcShane.com.
Absolutely. And check them out on Spotify. Check them out on YouTube. And yes, I'll play your music on my show as well. I do a live show on Sunday when I'm down there at the station. So there you go.
All right, all good. Thank you.
All right. God bless you. And thank you so much for the honor.
Sure. All the best.
Absolutely. Care.